With rapid changes in immigration policies, it is good to be informed. Seek advice only from a trustworthy legal counsel. Tansinko Law Offices, serving our immigrant community.
Hello, good day to everyone, and welcome to our Pusong Pinoy sa Amerika FB Live. Our topic today is very important to most of our kababayan, especially yung mga balikbayan. Marami po sa atin ay nakasanayan na nating umuwi sa Pilipinas upang makasama ang mga mahal natin sa buhay na nakatira pa sa Pilipinas, yung mga naghintay pa ng petisyon or waiting for us to be reunited here in the United States. Iba-iba ang dahilan ng pag-uwi, diba? Yung iba ay para magbigay ng tuwa sa mga kamag-anak nila sa Pilipinas sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng aginaldo. Either silang ninong or ninang, ang kanilang mga regalo, hindi nila nakakalimutan. Every year yan. Kaya lang kakaiba ang panahon ngayon. May pandemic crisis, kaya naman may restrictions ang pag-uwi sa Pilipinas. Pag-usapan natin ngayon ang estado ng mga gustong umuwi sa Pilipinas. Dahil humahalaga ang usapan natin ngayon, nag-imbita ako ng isang opisyal ng taga-Department of Foreign Affairs na si Attorney Rico Foss. Inaantay natin siya. Umpisahan na natin siguro ang background kung ano nga ba ang talagang patakaran ngayon ng pag-uwi ng mga Pilipino sa kanilang bayan. Kung natatandaan nyo, sometime in July or August binawalan yung mga hindi pa dual citizen, ang hawak lang nila ay US passport, binawalan sila na umuwi. Hindi naman dahil nadidiscriminate yung mga na-naturalize, kung hindi dahil meron tayong pandemic and those regulations were issued because they were trying to protect din yung safety nating lahat. So ano itong mga pagbabago naman? Beginning in July hanggang itong November, maraming nag-a-apply po ng dual citizenship dahil sila lang ang may Philippine passport ang pwedeng makauwi sa Pilipinas. Ngayon nag-iba. Itong tinatawag nilang ahensya, Interagency Task Force of the Philippines, ay nag-issue siya noong November 26, ito yung Thanksgiving weekend at naalala ko pa, nag-issue sila ng bagong patakaran. Ang sabi dito, starting December 7, bali nung Lunes yun ata the following may be allowed entry privilege to the Philippines under Republic Act number 6768 or the Act instituting the Balikbayan Program. So, sino ang mga pwedeng makauwi na ngayon ay mga Filipino citizens, foreign spouses, and children. Ibig sabihin kung ang asawa ninyo ay Pilipino, tapos kayo wala pa kayong Philippine passport dahil nag-naturalize kayo, pwede kayong makauwi sa Pilipinas kasama yung mga anak ninyo no matter what age, kahit na lampas pa ng 21 years old, okay? Ang kondisyon lamang ay they should be traveling with them. Mamaya natin pag-usapan yan dahil may mga cases tayong isasalara to illustrate this rule. And then the second one, former Filipino citizens. Okay, dito sa Amerika, syempre may maraming mga American dream. Gusto rin nilang mabilis ang mga petition nila sa mga kamag-anak nila. So marami ang nag-naturalize. Ito yung mga tinatawag na former Filipino citizens. So former Filipino citizens may now travel to the Philippines even if they do not have their passport. Now, former Filipino citizens, including their spouses and children who are traveling with them. Okay? Yun ang key dito. Dapat kasama nyong nagbabiyahe. Yung mga yung asawa at anak ninyo na walang Philippine passport. Actually, kayo lahat walang Philippine passport. Ang point ko lang is, if your children who are not former Filipino citizens, ibig sabihin pinanganak na sila dito and they did not apply for dual citizenship, pwede silang makapasok sa Pilipinas. However, they should be traveling with you. Okay? Ngayon, ang dahilan ho ng pagpalit ng patakaran ay dahil magpapasko na yung tourism sa atin. Alam naman ho ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas na yung desire ng mga balikbayan na makasama nga ang mga mahal nila sa buhay. So with that, may mga restrictions din sila. And the restrictions are they should have a pre-book quarantine facility. At i-explain mamaya ni Attorney Foss yan. At saka dapat may pre-book na COVID-19 testing at a laboratory. Now, I think I now have with us the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Migrant Filipino Migrant Workers Affairs. Naku, Rico, long time no see.
Time no see. Lou,
welcome to Pusong Pinoy sa Amerika.
You're still doing this. You're still doing public service. Grabe.
I have to.
Law school, Tuloy-tuloy.
Tuloy-tuloy. It's actually siguro it's my passion at kailangan nating ma-inform din ng mga kababayan natin.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. Ito po yung aking colleague, panyero, si Attorney Enrico Foss ho, mataas na ho ang katungkulan yan sa Department of Foreign Affairs. Sila ho ang in charge, tama ba ako, Rico? You're in charge of the migrant workers affairs. Yes. So maybe you want to tell them first about what you do and in relation to this resolutions that are coming out right now. And again, welcome to Pusong Pinoy.
Anong oras dyan?
Ay nako, ano na, alas 6 pa lang pero madilim-dilim na. Sa inyo alas 10 na.
Oo, yeah. 10 o'clock. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Lou, at saka doon sa mga suki niyo po, yung mga tagapakinig niyo. Thank you for inviting me to this program. My office, ito po yung opisina ng departamento na siyang namumuno doon sa pagtulong po ng mga Pilipino na sa ibang bansa. Lalo na po yung nagkaka-experience po ng distress, yung mga kailangan po ng tulong, nakulong, na ospital, kailangan maumuwi sa Pilipinas. Ito po yung opisina na po dito sa Pilipinas, sa Department of Foreign Affairs. As you recall, the Philippines has three-pronged foreign policy, one of which is assistance to national. This office is the implementer or the lead office for implementing the third pillar of foreign policy of the Philippines. So yun po.
Yeah.
Yung aming opisina.
Now, alam mo, maraming nanonood at nakikinig sa atin ngayon. Rico, ASEC.
Dito lang po.
Alam mo, nasabi ko na kanina na nagpalit nga ng patakaran. So they are now actually allowing former Filipino citizens to travel to the Philippines. Do you want to expound on those new rules?
Ano siguro muna yung context, no? Yung context ka rin yan, sa context niyan, ito bahagi ng pangangalaga natin doon sa public health, no? Isang bahagi ito ng public health. One of the measures that the government implemented, the Philippine government implemented, is to restrict the movement of people coming into the Philippines. Kaya po nagkaroon po ng suspension ng issuance of visa, no? Lahat po ng as early as March this year, all visa issuances were suspended, no? All across the board. Pati po yung may na-issuean na ng visa are deemed canceled. So walang foreigner na nakakapasok po sa Pilipinas except for two categories. Category 1 is those working for the embassies and international organizations or the Philippines that are accredited to the Philippine government. And the other one are former Filipinos or spouses and children of Filipinas who are in the Philippines. So yun lang yung category na dalawa. That was issued in March, no? So unti-unti po mula ng March, no, habang nag-i-improve naman po yung situation, coming from a total lockdown to a partial lockdown to ayun po, may mga kinikinita na po tayo na sa sunod na taon, baka ho magkakaroon na ho ng vaccine. Sa yun din sa Amerika po, nagsisimula na rin po pagtanggap po ng vaccine.
Yeah.
Ay nagsisimula na rin po tayo pagluluwag po ng pagpasok po ng ating mga foreigners po sa Pilipinas. At ang pinakahuli po nito na pagluluwag ay yung pagbalik po ng natawag nating balikbayan privilege on a limited scale, no? Ito po ay resolution ng Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Disease. Gaya po ng sa ibang bansa, meron pong interagency group, no? Task force po ito, kasama po yung Department of Foreign Affairs so doon, na mamuno para doon po sa pag-address o pag-harap po sa problema po ng pandemic ng COVID, no?
Okay.
So, itong pinakahuli po nilang issuance, this is Resolution number 85 series of 2020. Ang sinasabi lang po dito ay yung mga balikbayan ay pwede na ho bumalik sa Pilipinas. Especially, ang sinasabi sa balikbayan po natin at nakaposto sa screen mo ninyo ay una, yung former citizens, spouses, and children, regardless of age, who are traveling with them. Ang second category ay yung former Filipino citizens, including their spouses and children, regardless of age, who are traveling with them. I'd just like to emphasize two things now. Una, dapat kasama po nila sa pagbabiyahe para ma-enjoy yung balikbayan privilege. This is not new. Dati hindi mo pa rin ma-enjoy dati balikbayan privilege, hindi mo sila kasama sa You could only enjoy the balikbayan privilege ay kung kayo po ay kasama nyo ang inyong may privilege na tao, no? This is the spouse and the children. Excluded yung ibang category. So, grandchildren, pamangkin, fiancé, lolo't lola, hindi po sila kasali.
So, nilimit
very
lang nila.
Very specific. Even in the balikbayan privilege, very specific. Only the spouse and the children, regardless of age. So,
Hindi pwede fiancé?
Hindi po. Hindi kasali. Hindi kasali po yung fiancé. So, very, very specific. Spouses and children lang. And then, pangalawa, yung sinasabi ko nga, dapat kasabay nila po biyahe po papuntang Pilipinas, no? Now, when you do this, when you want to do go to the Philippines through that privilege, meron lang ibang mga, dahil sa pandemic nga po, may mga ilang kasamang requirement lang po. No? Una, may quarantine facility na kayong na-book kasama no? Pangalawa, meron na ho kayong testing center na na-identify na doon sa airport, no? Pangatlo, subject to sa limitation ng capacity ng airport to accept, no? Sa ngayon, as of Monday this week, ang last na meeting po namin, ang capacity ng airport natin ay makakapag-receive lang ho siya ng around 5,000 incoming international passengers on a daily basis. So, hindi ko alam po gaano kalaki po ang quota po na inaibigay or limits na ibigay po doon sa galing sa Amerika. Pero rest assured po kasi, ang hindi naman po magsasakay yung eroplano na binook nyo or ang carrier na binook nyo po kung wala po, lagpas po sila doon sa binigay sa kanilang allotment. Kasi each and every airline that flies to the Philippines are given is given a specific allotment for a certain period. So, more or less, alam mo na pasok ka kung andun ka po na inaibook ka nila sa aeroplano na na yun na pupunta sa Pilipinas.
Rico, I have a question. Ang ibig mo sabihin, it's not absolute na kunwari gusto na nilang mag-book ng kanilang ticket, kasama na nila yung asawa at anak nila na magbabiyahe, Hindi pa sigurado yon kasi 5,000 per day lang pala ang tinatanggap sa airport sa
Merong
Manila.
ganong limitation pong nilagay po doon sa resolution, pero ang sinasabi ko nga, in all practical sense, because seat allotment is given beforehand to airlines and carriers, no? Pag binuka ng airlines, they assume the responsibility. Ako, tingin ko, I am assuming that they know their allotment and they would not book you if they're above their allotment.
Oh, okay. So, kahit na nakabook ka, in other words, hindi pa rin yun sure. Kailangan talagang bine-verify pa rin sa mga airline na kasama ka sa allotted number of
Nila.
passengers
Oo.
nila.
Kasi may limitation pa rin yung ating airport, may capacity limitation.
Okay. So, siguro mas maganda, Rico, we'll go through different scenarios from the
Sige po.
simplest one.
Tingnan natin.
Kayang-kaya mo to. Sige, sasagutin ko ni Asek Enrico yung mga question natin. Ito ay typical example. I will read it just for our viewers. No, let's call the passenger's name is Jose. Jose was born in the Philippines and immigrated to the United States when he was 18. He's now a naturalized U.S. citizen and holds only a U.S. passport. Can Jose now travel to the Philippines? Ang sabi mo kanina, former Filipino citizens. Yes,
Pwede
diba?
pa.
Okay.
Pwede pa.
So,
On his own right, and
Yeah.
then he just have to show that he was a former Filipino. So
kahit
there
hindi
are,
niya,
kahit ano pa?
kahit hindi niya kasama yung asawa at anak niya. Tama?
Kung siya po ay dating Pilipino, was born in the Philippines, and I assume that he's a Filipino.
Yes.
Hindi, kung Amerikano na po siya,
Kung Amerikano na siya.
kasi nag-immigrate lang siya ang assumption ko dito kasi was born in the Philippines, is born of a Philippine parent, and then nag-immigrate siya sa US to get to his citizenship. That's why he has to choose at the age of 18. So he has to choose yung US citizenship. That's why he got his US citizenship. So the assumption is that he's a Filipino.
Former citizen. Former Filipino.
Former Filipino, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if
But if he is not a Filipino formerly, he could not.
He could not be because he was a Filipino at birth. Hindi lang siya dual citizen, ano? Ngayon, magpapabook na siya. One of the conditions you mentioned is they have to have a pre-booked quarantine hotel. Where will they obtain the list of hotels that are, eligible for them to?
Pwede siyang kumontak po sa embassy po natin or the consulate na nearest them. They have a copy of the DOT issuances on the list of hotels that are available for quarantine, and they have the contact details there. Or they could contact directly the Department of Tourism in the Philippines. May open website naman po sila that they could contact.
Just to clarify, silang magbabayad ng mga hotels nila, di ba?
Yes.
Hindi yung government.
Yes,
so,
po.
Sa mga recognized lang na mga hotels, hindi kahit saan.
Opo,
yung mga
kasi
nasa
ganito po yan.
lang. Yeah.
Yes po. Tama po kayo yung Attorney Lou. Kasi ang ano dyan kasi, this is not just ordinary hotel. This has been previously inspected and certified to by the Bureau of Quarantine that could be used as a quarantine facility. It's not a simple hotel, no. It's really a hotel, no. But measures to contain pandemic also are in place in that hotel. The facilities are still there, the infrastructure is still there, but there are additional measures like yung mga halimbawa yung servers mo na naghatid ng food nyo are on PPE, etc. No? May mga ganon. So there are requirements for them to satisfy to be considered as quarantine hotel, and these are requirements that was given by the Bureau of Quarantine or the Department of Health.
Yeah, so Asek, Rico, di ba the assumption is the hotels are in any place in the Philippines. They could be in Manila, they could be in the provinces. Tama?
No.
No?
That's no.
Can
that's
you clarify, please?
That's the when you go to the Philippines and when your port of entry is in Manila, the hotel should be in Manila.
Oh, okay.
Because you cannot proceed to the provinces until the quarantine period is over and you have tested negative of the COVID. If your entry in the Philippines is in Clark, should be in the Clark area. If you're in Cebu, in the Cebu area. So may containment na principle. Kasi nga infectious disease to. So may containment as much as possible. So kaya nga naka-quarantine hotel yung category niya.
Okay. So, Asek, kunwari si Jose, papunta siya ng probinsya. Kunwari, pupunta siya sa Angeles City, kunwari lang.
Okay.
Ano? Tapos na siya mag-quarantine. Pagdating ba sa Pampanga, magka-quarantine na naman siya?
Ganito pa. We have an arrangement with the province of Pampanga. Kasi Angeles to the province of Pampanga. Now, if you are landing in Manila, you will be placed in a quarantine. You will be allowed to leave Manila and placed in a quarantine facility, specifically established by the Pampanga government. Kung mga hotels din ito or quarantine facility, doon na ho sila. So, wala na pong hindi na ho sila magka-quarantine doon sa hotel or sa pagdating ho sa Pampanga. Kasi doon na ho sila sa Pampanga o pagdating sa Angeles. Now, having said that, that's only, for now, it's only available for those in Marikina, living in Marikina, residing Marikina, because they have the same facility, and then they have the same program, and only in Pampanga. Now, having said that, exception for the two, the general rule is that still the local government units have their own particular health protocols that they follow, depending on the situation on the province. For example, sa pag umuwi ka halimbawa sa Negros, mayroon din sila yung health protocol na i-impose sa inyo, other than the health protocols that are imposed when you arrive in Manila. So pagkatapos niyo po sa Manila, pagdating niyo po sa Negros, it might be possible that you have to undergo another quarantine period or another testing. Depende doon sa health protocol. I don't have the complete knowledge of the specific quarantine protocol per province or per local government. But generally, they have their own in addition to or complementing whatever is the national protocol on quarantine.
Yeah, so maybe it's good to advise the travelers to find out until yung kanilang destination kung anong mga quarantine protocols ang kanilang
para walang bulagaan.
Baka
masistress ka eh.
Baka yun lang ang bakasyon nila tapos hanggang quarantine lang pabalik na sila ng Amerika, di ba? Yun ang mahirap na mangyayari doon.
The good thing is that we're not imposing a 14-day quarantine.
Okay.
In the Philippines now, unlike in other countries, what we are imposing is a quarantine based on the result of the COVID testing. So, ang average result ng COVID testing is about 24 to 72 hours. It's about 1 day to 3 days. So, malilimit talaga yung number of days mo dun sa quarantine. As soon as you get your quarantine certificate that is issued to you by email or online, you could go now to your province or to your final destination.
Okay. But that is on the assumption na clear, negative, tuloy-tuloy ang bakasyon.
Yes. Kung positive ka, ililipat ka talaga nila doon sa isang facility pa for COVID positive people.
Ibang kwento na lang.
Ibang kwento na ho yun. And then, a good thing going to in the Philippines is also the positivity rate, if for a lack of a better term, Attorney Lou, the positivity rate is quite low. It's not even 2% of those coming in.
Yeah, because we assume also travelers here, of course they have to be sensitive also if they're not feeling well. Hindi naman sila isasakay din sa eroplano. That's why
may mga health check sila, pero of course, maraming ang spreaders ngayon. If you look at the situation worldwide, ang spreaders are those asymptomatic.
Yeah.
Yung walang simptomas na nag-outward.
Yeah. Balik ako sa kaso ni Jose, no? Assuming nakapag-spend na siya ng Christmas at saka New Year doon, pabalik na siya ngayon sa Amerika. And what documents would he need to show at the airport at hindi naman siya maipit ang pagbalik niya? There was a time yung mga nagdo-dual citizen dito, they are given the certificate that they are dual citizen, but they don't have the passport. So they would require a Philippine passport. So for a former citizen who entered with a U.S. passport only, would they still require a Philippine passport?
Kung nakapasok po kayo with a foreign passport and then that's been stamped, but you've proven yourself to be a former Filipino, and you've been stamped the balikbayan stamp, no, balikbayan privilege stamp. That the same passport you will be using kung going out of the Philippines.
Okay. Okay.
Wala
So,
namang, as far as I know po, walang additional requirement
okay.
for that.
That's good to know. Punta tayo sa case number 2. Meron din tayong kaso naman ni James. James is a U.S. citizen. Hindi ho siya dual. Hindi siya dual ng Philippines and U.S. Pero married siya sa isang former Filipino citizen. James is the only family member in the U.S. Dahil siya lang nagtatrabaho dito, Maria and the children are in the Philippines. Now, can James, who is not a former Filipino citizen and is a foreign national with a U.S. passport, travel to the Philippines to reunify with his family, even if the children and spouse are not traveling with him?
Yes, he can.
Oh,
But he has to obtain a visa.
Ganon.
Yun lang.
Mahirap kumuha ng visa.
Kasi ang one good thing going with him is that the family member, yung anak o yung asawa niya ay nasa Pilipinas. Pag wala sa Pilipinas, hindi rin siya po papasukin sa Pilipinas. As you said earlier on, the purpose of that non-suspension of that privilege is that to assist our families to reunite, especially in this time of pandemic.
Yeah, but what proof do they have to show that
Marriage contract
and proof of residence in the Philippines?
Yes.
Mga photos, would that be enough?
Oo.
Just to summarize the
Kasi,
answer. Go ahead, Asek.
Because mag-a-apply siya ng visa.
Oo.
Mag-a-apply siya. So these are the things that he has to show to the visa officer, to convince the visa officer that the exemption to the suspension of the visa issuance applies to him. So he has to show affiliation to the person in the Philippines that is a Filipino. Second, he has to show proof that that person he is going is in the Philippines. Okay. So yun. Assuming po, idudugtong ko na. Assuming that pupunta lang siya dito, no, wala dito yung kamag-anak niya o yung asawa niya or anak niya sa Pilipinas, he still could be allowed to enter the Philippines through by getting a visa, no. There are other categories ng visa kasi na available, pero mas komplikado po, no, like investors visa, like mga in-issue na visa ng there's a series of visas ng pwede po ina-allow ngayon sa Pilipinas for those, no, like bawa foreigner nga siya pero airline crew member siya, pwede siyang airline crew siya, pwede siya papasukan sa Pilipinas. Pwede ho siyang seafarer under 9C visa, joining siya sa cruise ship dito or sa cruise siya, magku-crew change sila dito sa Pilipinas. Mga ganon. There are other visa categories that a foreigner without even affiliation in the Philippines, like married to a Filipino or as children in the Philippines, could enter the Philippines at this time.
I see.
Ang caveat lang nun, they have to get a visa, and the visa officer at the consulate or the embassy would have to evaluate whether or not a visa category that is allowed to be issued under the present dispensation could be issued to that person applying for a visa.
I see.
Medyo malabo, no?
Hindi,
pero hindi lang balikbayan ang pwedeng pumunta sa Pilipinas.
Ibig sabihin,
yun lang yung ibig sabihin.
Passport. So, can I have that case on the screen again?
Okay.
So look, isa-summarize ko lang po para sa mga nanonood, nakikinig ngayon sa atin. In the case of a foreign national, not a former Filipino citizen, kung there is a relationship with a Filipino, either a spouse or a child, they can always apply for a visa at the Philippine consulate or the embassy nearest, right? And they should prove that they have this relationship. If they're not married, perhaps the birth certificate of the child, if he's actually the father of the Filipino. Okay. Now, because of the changes here, we will just tweak a little bit this situation. What if Maria and the children are traveling with James? Okay. And Maria has a Philippine passport. Di ba, James does not have to get a visa because they're traveling together? Tama? Okay.
Tama.
So for James to, to get
Assuming assumption nito, Attorney Lo, U.S. citizen ang si
Yeah.
James, ha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Assuming hindi siya Filipino, para hindi na siya kumuha ng visa, si Maria, a Filipino citizen or a former Filipino citizen, sabihin na natin, should be traveling with him.
Yun din.
Okay. So maliwanag po yun. Okay? So punta naman tayo sa isang kaso. Ang kaso naman ni Lola. Lola Maring. Lola Maring is a widow of a Filipino veteran. She applied for naturalization and is now a U.S. citizen. Wala siyang Philippine passport. Now, can Lola Maring just board the plane and travel to the Philippines? Because she's now allowed, being a former Filipino citizen. Papakita niya yung birth certificate niya. If she does not plan to return to the United States, doon na siya mag-retire. Sabihin niya, matanda na ako, wag niyo na ako papag-dual. Will there be problem for her staying in the Philippines for good?
Opo, di ba? Pag na wala mo po yung Philippine citizenship niyo, dapat mo ma-reacquire to have that privilege and the right to stay for good in the country. Otherwise, magvi-visa po kayo. So, ang suggestion ko, kahit dito na siya sa Pilipinas, contact pa rin po siya sa BI, sa Bureau of Immigration, at mag-apply for dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Either dual or renunciation or reacquisition of Philippine citizenship, ng foreign citizenship. Renunciation of foreign citizenship and reacquire a Philippine citizenship. Doesn't have to be both, no? Pwede naman ng reacquisition lang or dual citizenship. Yun lang po.
Yeah. Okay.
Simple naman po ang process. Kung gaano kasimple po ang process po dyan sa embassy natin at sa consulate, ganoon po yung proseso. Isang proseso lang po yun.
I see. Okay. So, maliwanag ho yan, Lola. Makakapagbiyahe kayo, makakauwi kayo sa Pilipinas, pero pagdating nyo sa Pilipinas, think about applying for dual citizenship or kaya ng visa para naman, wala akong problema ang pag-stay ninyo. Alam ko, sa puso ninyo, Pilipino ako, bakit kailangan ko pang mag-visa doon or mag-dual citizenship? Tulad ho ng sinabi ni Sec Rico, kailangan ho yun kung magre-retire kayo sa Pilipinas. Okay? So, I think we go to our last case, case number 4. The case of Grace. Okay, so Grace is a former Filipino. I see a question here from Romel saying, how do you prove that you are a former Filipino? You can prove it by your birth certificate, right? Before you obtain your naturalization. Yeah. So that's my response to that. So Grace is a former Filipino, a naturalized U.S. citizen. No Philippine passport. She was only able to get 2 weeks of leave to visit her ailing mother in the Philippines. Upon her arrival, how long is she supposed to stay in the quarantine facility? I think that has been answered. No more than 72. Is that the maximum?
Yun po yung standard ngayon.
Okay.
Pero mayroong idadagdag ko lang po doon sa kay Grace dahil of the exceptional circumstance niya. Ang suggestion ko po sa kanya, and then we do this at the airport, no? Because I've been working also at the airport. Isabihin niya po doon sa testing center niya. Halimbawa, kung nagpa-testing po siya doon sa may mga private testing laboratories servicing at the airport. Sabihin niya po that I wanted to have a result soonest because I have to have this emergency, no?
Okay.
Nagagawa naman po nila. Kasi ginagawa ho nila niyan, by batches kasi, di ba? Tapos isa-separate nila doon, inilalagay nila doon sa emergency. Yun lang po. Ang caveat ko lang po palagi dyan, wag lang po abusuhin. Kasi pag may nangangailangan talaga ng ano na yan, ng lane na yan for emergency, baka mapuno at hindi na natin masilbihan po yung kailangan, may pangangailangan talaga. Kung hindi naman talaga po emergency, ang kadalasan naman po, the last report that I received this Monday when we had our operational discussion, around 80% of the results are coming out of the laboratory in 24 to 36 hours. So mabilis-bilis naman po. So kung hindi talaga naman po emergency, ipaubayan na po natin doon sa may mga emergency talaga po yung parang special lane na ho yun para lang makalabas sila ko kaagad.
Ganun ba? O, dapat
Meron po,
maintindihan
meron
nila
po,
yun
meron.
para hindi
Basta
mapuno.
sabihin nyo, wag kayong ano na pagkatapos bago di ba pupunta ho kayo doon sa magsaswab po sa inyo, kukuha po ng sample po sa inyo. Sabihin nyo pa lang po, di ba naglilista po kayo. Sabihin nyo na po na you need to have your results soonest because I have to attend the wake and I have only 2 weeks leave.
So
Or
there's
halimbawa, may
expedite.
schedule kang medical procedure sa Pilipinas. If you wanted to have your medical procedure sa Pilipinas, sabihin nyo sana bago pa ho yun ang schedule na magawa ho natin. Malabas yung results nyo.
So in summary, ASEC is like, pwede naman pa-expedite, but you're saying do it only for the right reasons para hindi mapuno naman yung expedite na queue.
Oo.
Ano. So the next one is, may bayad ba ang expedite?
As far as I know, wala. As far as I know, wala naman po.
Okay.
May nagkaroon na po ng cap kasi nag-impose po yung ating Department of Trade and Industry at saka yung ating Department of Health in a joint memorandum issued a week or two ago, putting up a ceiling on the price for the COVID testing in the Philippines.
Okay.
So, ang maximum sa ngayon ay, if I recall it right, it's about 4,500 for about $100.
Okay. So, meron related question dito from Henrietta Suyeda. Ang tanong niya, do I need to have a COVID test here in the U.S. before going to the Philippines? And if the result is negative, will they accept this in the Philippines or do I need to take another one? Medyo...
There's no requirement for us that you have to be COVID tested before going to the Philippines. The only requirement is that for you to be tested upon arrival in the Philippines. You know, you could acquire COVID while at the airport and going to the Philippines, even after you have shown your COVID test, di ba?
Yes.
In fact, the airport is one of the most dangerous places because a lot of people are there, crowded, etc. No? Or sometimes people don't observe physical distancing, and sometimes people don't observe infectious disease health protocol. So, and then, pagdating mo sa Pilipinas, airport pa rin yun. So, I think ang rationale for our health officials here in the Philippines is that testing ka pagdating mo dito. Pag wala ka, pwede ka na maghalubilo doon sa general population.
Yeah, so optional na lang yun siguro kung gusto nilang mag-test bago sila.
Parang yan parang
para
sure na sure ka.
Di ba?
Kaso lang, katabi mo ba sure ka?
Hindi ka rin sure.
Hindi ka rin sure Pero kaya ikaw na lang, be responsible for yourself. Just cover your with yourself with the face mask. And kung pwede ka pa matiis mo, mag-face shield ka along the way.
Yeah. And then may question pa rin dito from Dida Mags. Ang sabi niya, since flights to Clark are still limited, is there transportation available that will take visitors from Manila Airport to Angeles City? Kung sa Angeles sila magka-quarantine.
Meron po. Kung taga-Angeles po kayo at taga-Pampanga po kayong final destination mo, meron pong arrangement na ginawa po yung Pampanga government para po ilabas po yung Pampanga residents and going to Pampanga. Doon kayo mag-quarantine facility sa Pampanga.
Okay, magandang balita. Tsaka gustong-gusto ko na yung province of Pampanga is very proactive also. And not because I'm from that province. I'm sure there are other provinces who are making these agreements with your agency or whoever is in charge of the quarantine, di ba? Before we end, I still have a few questions, just some clarificatory questions. I know you're very busy, Asek. Thank
Okay
you.
lang po. Okay
Oo.
lang po.
Sa mga hindi,
Nami-miss ko na rin po yung, alam niyo po, na-assign po ako dyan sa US, di ba?
oo nga,
At
kaya
nagdadalaw po ako sa San Francisco because of the work on campaign natin for veterans equity dati,
tama,
di
oo.
ba?
Matagal na
So,
po kaming
matagal.
nagtrabaho ni Asek Rico nung nasa Washington DC pa siya. Ngayon ho nasa DFA na. Kaya siya ngayon ang may alam na mga sagot ng lahat nito. So, I know you already answered some of the questions, but just for those who were not here beforehand, ang tanong dito, just some general questions. Can non-Filipino fiancé traveling with fiancé be allowed to enter the Philippines? Yung
Hindi
kanina,
po.
visa.
Hindi talaga.
Kailangan
Kailangan
po yung visa.
magbibisa siya. Pero hindi sa the category that he is a fiancé. Kasi wala ho tayong fiancé
Ang
visa.
fiancé visa mga Philippine immigration.
Oo,
Sa
wala
US
po.
lang po yun. So,
Opo.
ang sagot doon, kung ang boyfriend mo gusto sumama sa'yo sa Pasko, pakuhanan mo na lang siya ng visa. May tanong dito, Sec, how much will the visa cost? I think it starts at
Alam ko hindi ko kabisado talaga yung visa fees.
I
Pasensya
think,
po.
yeah.
Pero nakapublish po yan na
Mhm.
Ma'am Maria. Ma'am,
Tom Cruise.
ano ba talaga pangalan niyo po? Toma Cruz Big Peppers.
Yeah.
Maria. Ma'am Maria na lang po. Nakapublish po yan doon sa mga consulate po, yung visa fee schedule niyo.
Yeah, may mga $90 depende kung multiple o single entry ganyan. Pero just to verify, you can check the website of your nearest consulate. Now, I think I asked this also my second question in reference to people who have been in a relationship for a long time without the benefit of marriage, mga common law relationship. If they have been together for several years and have joint properties, and they are traveling together, they will still the non-Filipino, the foreign national will still need a visa to enter
Yes.
the United States.
Tama.
But if they get married and they're traveling together, he doesn't need a visa. Tama?
Tama po.
And then you also mentioned hindi pwedeng pamangkin, hindi pwedeng, mga ibang kamag-anak. Pinsan, kung pinsan mo, kasama mong magta-travel, hindi pwede, What, is it the same for grandchildren?
Opo.
Kunwari, yung example natin kanina, si Lola Maring, yung meron siyang apo, sasabihin niya, Lola, I'll accompany you to the Philippines when you go home. Hindi pwede kasi hindi naman siya spouse or child.
Anak.
O son or daughter. Okay.
Ang siguro lang, i-clarify ko lang, yung adopted children,
Mhm.
pwede.
Okay.
Kasama po sila doon sa privilege.
What about stepchildren?
Hindi.
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 Yeah? What about
Adopted children lang. Nakalagay po sa batas po, adopted children lang po eh.
what about illegitimate children?
Pag-recognize siguro. Kasi it will show the affiliation in the birth certificate kahit illegitimate.
Okay. Kung wala yung pangalan nila sa birth certificate,
Ang hirap po i-prove eh.
mahirap i-prove. Kahit na nagbibigay sila monthly ng support.
Kasi ang support is not a proof of affiliation eh. Di ba? Ang hirap po, ang hirap. Madami pong gray area dyan na medyo complex yung sa legal question. Pero straightforward yung batas eh. Anak at asawa.
Yeah, very straightforward. Tsaka yung anak, wala naman age, no? Walang age
Wala,
limit.
wala.
Okay. The purpose of the latest IATF Resolution 85 is actually to reunify with the family during the holidays. Is there a possibility that this is going to be amended and they will prohibit again the privileges of a balikbayan after the holidays?
Ano po yan eh. Ang situation kasi is not only because of the reunification but also the situation in the pandemic. No? Remember that the visa issuance and the suspension thereof is related to our responses to the spread of the virus. Yung tipong ganun. So, as the situation improves, siguro luluwag ho tayo ng luluwag. Pero pag lumala po, magkakaroon po ulit ng adjustment ang ating visa issuances or those entry procedures in the Philippines.
Yeah, and then they can always apply for visas to those who are not covered by this Balikbayan resolution or the IATF resolution. And as you mentioned, pwede naman kung their purpose is for business, they can always get an investor or a business visa to enter the U.S.
Merong certain categories lang po ng visa na allowed sa Philippines sa ngayon na na-lift na yung suspension for that visa issuance. No? Like, halimbawa ko, yung mga seafarers, pwede na po. Yung mga tawag dito, yung iba pang category na binabanggit po nila, mayroon sila po doon sa listing po niyan doon sa BI memorandum na kung ano po yung pwede pong pumasok sa Pilipinas.
I see. Okay, so meron ka pa bang gustong idagdag na hindi natin napag-usapan, Asek?
Ano pa ba? Yun lang po. Siguro ano lang po, ang suggestion ko lang po, kung hindi kayo po sigurado doon sa information, it's best na magtanong kayo po sa consulate or sa embassy. Kasi lang po, I don't want you to experience na dito nyo pa lang po mabulaga po kayo na hindi pala pwede, meron pala ganitong klaseng procedure. Nakaka-stress po. Nagbiyahe na po, if you're coming from the West Coast, nagbiyahe na po kayo ng 11 hours ba 10? 14 hours in a straight flight. Diba? Pagod na ho kayo. Pagdating nyo dito, mabubulaga pa kayo. Masi-stress pa ho kayo. So, especially in this time of holidays na dapat paunti-unti na po ang level ng stress yung bumababa, huwag nyo na po pataasin by not having that kind of information that are available when you want it. At pwede nyo naman po itanong talaga.
Yeah. So maganda naman yung advice mo. Ang akin lang naman, syempre mahalaga nga during the holidays magkasama-sama. Pero kung naman maiwasan din, just for your safety and if you're not feeling well, wag mo natin pilitin. But if you really have to because of an emergency, someone is sick in the family, yung mga hindi natin maiwasan, ingat lang po and just be aware of what the regulations are. So tulad nga ng sinabi ni Asek Rico, limited pero pwede naman, di ba? Maraming salamat Asek Rico. At saka sa mga bumabati ngayon sa atin, sina Kirby, sina Jocelyn, si Ray Santos. Hindi ko naman alam, gusto daw niya kausapin yung Archbishop of San Fernando, si Ray Santos. Kirby Recto, hello. Grace Vega, Dida, thanks for your question. Francis, hello. Romel, hello. Henrietta, thanks for your question. Maria, thanks for your question. Bong Isidro, hello. Divine, thanks for watching. Bong Isidro, the question is, I'm a dual citizen. My wife is not. Can she travel to the Philippines? Yes, if you are traveling together. Pwedeng magbiyahe. Tama ba, Rico?
Tama po.
May last question. So, pa-shout out din kay Michelle Langomez, my executive producer. And of course, thank you for coordinating this and to the staff of Tansinko Law Offices. Maraming salamat. Ayan, meron pa sina Amis, sina Fred. I'm sure marami tayong nabigyan ng informasyon. Asek Rico, sana sa susunod, wag kang madadala. At sana maulit natin kung mga may pagbabago.
Sige po, kami naman po, and then you know me, kung kaya po, gawin ho natin. If I know the information, why not share it? Parang gano'n yung ang nasabi ko lang palagi.
Yeah, so sa mga taga-subaybay po natin ng Pusong Pinoy sa Amerika, malapit na po tayong babalik sa ere ng season 16 na. maybe for next year. Palampasin lang po natin itong pandemic. In the meantime, let's do this. So kung di po kayo makita na before the holidays, maligayang Pasko ho, stay safe and be well. Thank you very much for watching our show for today. Thank you.
With rapid changes in immigration policies, it is good to be informed. Seek advice only from a trustworthy legal counsel. Tancinco Law Offices, serving our immigrant community.